Today is the 30th birthday of Chief Beard Lover and recipient of the award for most frequent YouTuber for Banky8408 to rip off, Wheezy Waiter. Let's celebrate by reviewing a book. That doesn't really seem to fit. Craig doesn't even know how to read. I mean, I guess we could celebrate with explosions, but it's not Wednesday and that's not even a thing. Oh well. I have not actually reviewed a book on this channel for quite some time. I apologize for that. I was kind of waiting to do this book review until I received the next book on the favorites list, and the next book on the favorites list is one that's kind of hard to find. And plus, I'm kind of lazy, and this book review was actually a little bit hard to write. But here I am now doing the next book on the favorites list, The Very Ordered Existence of Merilee Marvelous by Suzanne Crowley, or Crowley, or however you pronounce her name. This is the third book on the favorites list that I've reviewed, the other two being Paper Towns and To Kill a Mockingbird, that has pretty much the same message. In fact, this story has actually a lot in common with To Kill a Mockingbird. This is the story of Merilee Monroe, who lives in the small town of Jumbo, Texas, where she has committed the heinous social crime of being different. Her mother calls her special, her sister calls her spaz, her grandmother calls her unnatural, and everyone else just calls her strange. Merilee lives by what she calls a very ordered existence, or VOE for short. This existence involves exact to-the-minute scheduling of each and every day, and if she deviates from this schedule at all, she feels out of sorts. Which is why she's really not ready for the inquisitive and equally strange Biswick O'Connor who arrives in town. Now, I said a moment ago that this book has a lot in common with To Kill a Mockingbird, and one of the big things it has in common with To Kill a Mockingbird is the style of storytelling. The story is told in first person from the point of view of Merilee Monroe, and Merilee Monroe is from Texas. So you kind of get that whole southern storytelling feel to the whole thing. You know, with the odd metaphors, and you can almost hear the southern twang in the reading. It's actually pretty cool. But the main thing it has in common with To Kill a Mockingbird and Paper Towns is the message of not misperceiving people and imagining people complexly. But where Paper Towns focused on humanity at large and To Kill a Mockingbird focused on racial and class and gender discrimination, this book focuses on another kind of discrimination, one that's a little more modern and one that is kind of overlooked. And that is the discrimination of people with special needs, or people that are disabled, or people that are handicapped, or whatever term you want to use. I prefer special needs because it sounds a little more positive than disabled or handicapped. But that's just me. Now, we are never explicitly told exactly what sort of condition Merilee might have. We know that she has some sort of condition because she went to doctors and the doctors confirmed it, but we only receive hints of what she has. But based on those hints, she probably has some high-functioning form of autism. And as autism is becoming more and more prevalent among children these days, I imagine that most of you know at least one person with some form of autism, and I'm glad that there's a story out there that is told from that unique perspective. But also in this story we have Biswick O'Connor, who is Merilee's opposite in almost every way. Merilee is very intelligent, but she's also very cynical and pessimistic, and she doesn't allow herself to get close to people. Biswick, on the other hand, while not being quite as intelligent as Merilee or as other children his age, is very open and very talkative and very honest, and he loves everybody. I mean, everybody. So while Merilee has almost no hope or love to spare for anyone, Biswick has abundant amounts of both. And so under the most unlikely circumstances, the two of them become friends. And one of the good things about this story is watching that relationship develop. In fact, in general, watching Merilee's relationships with other people develop throughout the book is really fascinating. Like I said, Merilee is a very pessimistic and cynical person. She doesn't allow herself to get close to people, and she is especially cynical about the people of Jumbo, Texas. And so early on in the story, when she is describing people, she's usually using their most negative aspects to describe them. But we see those descriptions change subtly throughout the story, and by the end, she's not necessarily describing their most redeeming qualities, but she's still describing them in a more open and objective way. Most especially we see this with Sheriff Buff and Grandmother Birdie. When we first meet them, they are both extremely hateful and extremely ignorant, and we just want to thump them. But by the end of the story, they're sympathetic characters because Merilee's perception of them has changed. Ultimately, this story is about Merilee, and in a lot of ways it's just a typical coming-of-age story about an adolescent girl. The story is really about Merilee finding out that she does have the capacity to love other people, even though it is difficult for her to get close to them. It's also about Merilee finding her capacity to have hope for the future and hope for the people in Jumbo, Texas. And again, just like with Paper Towns and Was to Kill a Mockingbird, she is learning to see things from other people's points of view. Honestly, there is a lot going on in this story, and I barely even scratched the surface of the stuff that I could analyze in this story. It's one of those books that really does tell a great story, but that is unfortunately not that well known, and I think that more people should read this book. In fact, I would go so far as to put this book on my ultimate recommendation list. And again, just like with To Kill a Mockingbird, it starts out talking about discrimination against people with disabilities or handicaps or who have special needs, but by the end it's talking about all people. So the very ordered existence of Merilee Marvelous is still on the favorites list, it's on the ultimate recommendation list, and so I would definitely encourage you to go seek it out and read it. And the next book on the favorites list, another great story that hardly anybody knows about, 24 Girls in 7 Days by Alex Bradley. And I will see you next time. Bye. I'm gonna do that again, be a little bit more excited.